I can't think of any place lonelier than a dream. Dreams conjure up places that can seem so real, but can disappear in an instant. Powerful dreams can leave you with a lingering feeling of desire, euphoria, or even dread the next morning. And anyone who's ever had a crazy dream knows the feeling of writing it down in your notes app and trying to tell someone the next day. 𝙔𝙪𝙨 is an indie horror RPG fan game still currently in development by numerous developers and musicians. It's about 𝙔𝙪𝙨, a girl who constantly dreams. You've probably heard of 𝙔𝙪𝙨, its 2004 predecessor created by 𝙃𝙤𝙧𝙧𝙧, which follows the same storyline. Very little is known about the developer of 𝙔𝙪𝙨 aside from scant articles here and there, but its influence as inspiration for other games in the genre and for other developers has not stopped its reach. 𝙔𝙪𝙨 was created as a spiritual successor to Nikki by several artists and programmers with a shared understanding of the process. In many ways, 𝙔𝙪𝙨 has only built upon what 𝙔𝙪𝙨 started. There's even an online multiplayer mode with a chat feature. Although there are hundreds of maps and authors to boot, 𝙔𝙪𝙨 remains a master of environmental storytelling. Because of its many endings, the community is littered with dozens of unique theories on the lore and characters. Fans have conjured up their own headcanon ideas about the story, the locations, and the protagonist herself. We could spend hours doing the same, but I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to briefly focus on the overall atmosphere and the emotion that the game brings to the table while it's played alone, and its effect on the player. I want to approach this from the perspective of a new player who doesn't know anything aside from what I've already shared here. With that said, okay, so I talked about aloneness in the beginning. There's this overwhelming feeling of being completely alone when you start the game up. No other game has given me this feeling. It's not the cold, alien aloneness of Silent Hill or the exciting aloneness of booting up Fallout 4. No, it's something else entirely. It feels almost forbidden. There's no two-player, there's no chat feature, and your protagonist is silent. You start the game in 𝙔𝙪𝙨's room and she refuses to leave. Every day, she wakes up, looks out onto her balcony, and then goes to sleep. And she dreams. The things you experience in these dreams feel as if they're for your eyes only. The experiences are so strange that if someone isn't there with you, it wouldn't make any damn sense at all. While 𝙔𝙪𝙨 starts in her room, she can freely travel once asleep. This is done by way of a nexus, a hub world with multiple doors, which grows in size over time. The hub world itself is considered a map, and each door leads to doors, which leads to more doors, and so on and so forth. From the nexus, you are immediately thrust into a strange sense of isolation. This is due in part to the simplistic nature of the game. For the entirety of each run, you are left to explore the world simply by walking. You aren't stopped until you pinch yourself, a game mechanic used to bring you back to the real world, or until 𝙔𝙪𝙨 is startled awake. So, you begin to travel. You go to a museum, a hospital, an experimentation facility, a mountain, a hotel, a garden, the circus, the forest, and Guts World, all the while accompanied by the strange and macabre. Each location is a twisted mockery of reality, with the spaces often bleeding into one another. There are cryptic messages and small interactions with NPCs, but ultimately, this world feels as if it was not made for you, and eventually you come to understand the massive scale of this universe you know nothing about. You only have two jobs in 𝙔𝙪𝙨, and one of them is to keep walking. In this way, you are focused in on the situation at hand. You only want to find something new, and in a way your mind is hoping that you do. Sometimes it's easy. Other times you may have to interact with characters to pass to the next plane. Sometimes there is only the plane and nothing else. Sometimes there is... The real challenge is getting there. 𝙔𝙪𝙨 requires some degree of patience if you don't know where you're going, especially if the way out is not clearly marked with a door. With some of the larger maps, sometimes finding the way to the next possible area can be frustrating, and as a new player, you're alone to do all of this. There is no direction until you eventually become frustrated and bust out the wiki. Oh my god, how big is this game? Your other job is to collect effects. As the name suggests, these are collectibles that appear in your inventory, which cosmetically alter 𝙔𝙪𝙨's appearance. They're not only cosmetic, but can also drastically improve the experience, like this bike found in Garden World. In 𝙔𝙪𝙨, there are 24 effects, but in 𝙔𝙪𝙨, there are 36. Most players who are engaged won't last long without stumbling into at least one effect, but it's not really required. They're sort of optional depending on how you want to experience the game. Without the bike, Urotsuki can just walk around at a snail's pace for the entirety of the game. Without the chainsaw, Urotsuki can't kill helpless creatures and listen to them scream. You can do whatever you want, she doesn't care either way. Sometimes effects can change the way other characters interact with you or give you access to places previously restricted. Sometimes maps can give you clues as to the locations of these effects, but without the wiki, it's exponentially more difficult, especially for those who are directionally challenged. Time seems to have slowed in Yume. In today's age of fast-paced content, this game would be boring to most. And no, that's not meant to be pretentious or anything. Seriously, if you never leave her room, nothing will happen. There's nothing here right now. You have to get the fuck up and go find it. The game takes its time on purpose. It knows what it is. The enjoyment and entertainment to be gained comes entirely from the player's perspective, and there's something really cool about that. The narrative isn't forced on me, and I'm not bombarded with lines of dialogue trying to be charming. This works in favor for many games I love, where the writing really shines, but Yume seems almost uncaring in its delivery. The effects aren't going to look for you. It's the opposite. The adventure stops when you stop searching for it. Most of the game's music borders on experimental, staying within the genres of breakbeat, electronic, and ambient or atmospheric. There are instances of drum and bass and techno music in more industrial or futuristic places, while gentle acoustic guitar can be heard in desolate locations that overlook the sunset. Since its inception in the early 2000s, many of the game's harsh loops have been replaced with cleaner production and songs with more depth. Much of the music goes hand in hand with the art, and frankly, it makes up half of the game, maybe even more. Urotsuki has a music room where the OST can be accessed freely from her computer, permitting that she has visited the corresponding world at least once. There's a reason why looking up Yume OST on YouTube brings up so many playlists from fans played with insomnia. It's because the OST is really, really good. As of right now, the wiki lists a little over 500 tracks, each created by many unique artists. Aside from a few copies, each song is crafted specifically for each world, and it makes the game special. With its massive size, Yume couldn't have just copy-pasted the same droning ambient track like the one played in Dark Museum over and over again. Now that would completely ruin the intrigue. Much like in Pikmin, music is used intelligently in Yume. It's thought of more as a device for communication to the player than it is for easy listening. Music that is soft and gentle is meant to suggest this place is safe. You are safe here. Dizzy synths and harsh sawtooth mimic a certain feeling of dissociation, while bells and piano provide an easy listening experience, if eerie. Traversing through long, dark hallways and rivers of blood makes places like Hot Air Balloon World feel like a cup of coffee on a cold day. Whether you realize it or not, music in any game is used to manipulate the motions and mental state of the player, and this game is a master at it. The maze of stairs is not so tedious when Pyramid Maze's hypnotic loop fades in, for instance. Lots of the music also contributes to the dreamlike atmosphere, and it's kind of incredible how all these different pieces complement both each other and the game. Lorn Towers' theme, which sounds like a deep cut from a Boards of Canada record, imposes this feeling of loneliness and intrigue as you stand in a huge dimly lit room that looks to have been abandoned. Wooded Lakeside's train ride offers a view of the map from a unique in-game perspective, and there's this exhilarating feeling of moving forward. In Poseidon Plaza, you are pleasantly surprised with the art and the music both. There's beautiful sprite work in the foreground and gentle lighting in the background, suggesting the light of day. It captures the strange liminality of being in an empty space where large groups of people once spent their time. Like the theme for the Snowy Apartments or for Cog Maze, it is haunting and relaxing both. In the same manner as Silent Hill, it seems that Yume is comfortable in the shared space between horror and tranquility. About 86% of the Yume experience is based on the enjoyment of the artwork. I don't have the footage of the first stream I ever did for Yume, but it started here. The Head Wasteland is the first world where I thought to myself, wow, I hope every world is just like this one. I wanted to see more, and that's exactly what I got. But it's not all just eye candy. Yume has a talented team of developers and artists who have connected the worlds and their themes in clever ways. If I hadn't mentioned before, there are shortcuts, hidden pathways, and multiple passages to get to many of the same maps. There are references and themes to some maps and others, like this hint for obtaining the bike effect at the Monster's Jaw. Almost everything is connected. Anyone can make just a bunch of cool maps and put them in a game. Hylix and Space Funeral both do this, although there's plenty of intriguing lore in those games to support the art. But because there isn't a story in Yume that you'd see in a streamlined RPG Maker game, 2K affords the player with a sort of museum guide mentality instead. It's nice to turn on a game and think, I just want to go see a cool new thing real quick. In the same way you might want to fight a new Bloodborne enemy for an hour, or do a quest for an NPC in Elden Ring. The natural flow of a Yume run has stopping points. You can recognize them as detailed scenes with lush backgrounds and an ambient track, much like exhibits in a museum. As you can probably tell, the order of maps is very intentional, and arriving on a scene feels like an earned discovery. From Red Streetlight World, there are a handful of other maps. You can make your way to a mansion off the heels of a dark and stormy pathway with its own butlers and these strange spinning monkey head things. You have to navigate the twisting paths to make it to an oversized chessboard, and then through some dark passages where you will eventually take a seat in a couch that seems to await your presence. I'll spoil the scene for you, but if you don't want to see it, skip to this timestamp. There are lots of events just like that one. Much of the art and animation comes from a place that feels very real and honest, with scenes that are very emotional. Each newly discovered location, NPC, or event rewards you with a new wallpaper, and you can look back and reflect on these memories later. Let me clarify, the game isn't perfect. Some places are jarring and frustrating to navigate, riddled with chasers and burdened with an unpleasant loop. Some places aren't finished yet either, and if you do happen to find one, you are met with a dead end and a little yellow construction sign. Sometimes after a lot of progress. That's not uncommon for a game in development since 2007, however. It's all part of the experience. Despite its loneliness, I feel quite at home playing this game. It resonates with me on many levels. It feels very personal. Many of the art pieces tell a story, and it's clear that Yume has a lot to say without saying anything at all. Well, that's it. Special thanks to 𝙃𝙤𝙧𝙧𝙧𝙧 on Twitch for introducing me to this game, and to the Yume community for the dedicated wiki. I know there's so much I haven't even covered yet. The lore, the fan art, the fan games, Crude puzzles, the meaning behind characters, the game console, and all of the endings. I think at some point I'd like to dive deeper into these aspects of the game, but for now, I'd rather just leave things here. Yume is a special interest of mine because of what it manages to convey without words, something that has inspired other games as well as my own. I'm positive that there are things I got wrong in this video, so please don't crucify me, but truth be told, I haven't actually finished the game. Like, really, I'm only like 48% of the way through. I'm not sure if that's more of a testament to my ADHD or to how huge this game is. Either way, I really hope you enjoyed watching this. It's my first video of this kind, and I would really like for there to be more. I do want to take the month of January to focus on real life and sort of go touch grass, so you may see another animation or two if I've got time, but don't depend on it. Either way, I will continue to create things. Tell me what you think in the comments, and let me know if you'd like to see more of this sort of thing. I really enjoyed making it. I had a lot to say, and I'm glad I said it. It is a pleasure to live in a world where something so beautiful exists. Goodbye, stranger.